Aloha and welcome to Talk Story with Keli'i Akina on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Keli'i Akina, and my guest today is Kali Watson, Chairman of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Please join our conversation about what's going on the Hawaiian Homelands. And I welcome to the program Kali. Kali, aloha.
Aloha. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, always. And how long have you been with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands?
Well, this is my second tour. Back in the mid 90s, under the Cayetano administration, I served 4 years. And subsequently, just recently, I've been on for about roughly 3 years under their Josh Green administration.
Well, Kali, in your background, you have quite a bit of business experience, and you certainly could be in the business world today. Why did you choose to go into public service, and in particular at the Hawaiian Homelands?
Well, having been in that particular position at DHHL, I was very familiar with the program. And after leaving that in 1998, I started to get into the servicing the communities out there, the different associations, in particular the Nanafuli, and then got into affordable housing development, which is totally different from the market-driven type. And so since that time, with over 20 years of experience, the governor asked me to come back and help him deal with the Act 279 $600 million disposition and doing it in a way that most effectively helps the program. That's what I'm there for.
Well, Kali, you certainly are bringing a great deal of experience from the business world to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and you've obviously looked at its history. Back in 1920, we know that the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act was established. What basically, in a nutshell, has taken place in the history of Hawaiian Homelands since then until now?
It doesn't have a very impressive track record. In the 105 years of its existence, they've developed maybe 100 units per year for a total of a little over 11,000 homesteads. And there's over 29,000 on the wait list. Many of them are dying in place, unfortunately. And so it's very critical that we move it forward. And so using the money in the most effective way, the 600 million, is really critical. And that's one reason why I came back.
Well, certainly there are great challenges, and as you mentioned them, that includes the waitlist backlog, lack of critical infrastructure, roads, water, power, and so forth. You certainly inherited a challenging job to execute, but there are also opportunities, and I want to congratulate you because in recent years, the department has awarded about 2,600 homesteads. So that's a huge jump from just 84 in 2024. Can you explain what it was that resulted in that greater productivity?
Well, basically, we're using a totally different approach where we do large projects. Basically, as an example, in Kapolei, the Kaulo Kahai project we're doing, we ordered about 700 leases, one shot. And we did it in a way where we issued project lease awards where you don't have to pre-qualify. You don't have to get a loan in advance before you can get to the table and choose a lot for your homestead. By doing it in that large approach, using developers that are familiar with not only the vertical, but also the infrastructure construction, and combining the two, including administering not only the construction, getting the financing, doing the designing, as well as building in a way in which I've mandated, which is categorizing the people based on their income, whether it's a LIHTC or low income housing tax credit for the lower income, or whether it's a turnkey for those that have are more affluent, can qualify for a pre-construction loan, or whether it's working with Habitat if they want to put in the sweat equity, or if they want to build their own, we'll just give them a finished lot and they can move from there.
I want to talk with you a little bit more about some of those innovations, but going back to the challenge of the position that you're in, there are still more than 29,000 people on the waiting list. What does that say about the scale and the scope of the job that's needed to be done?
Well, obviously, with those numbers, which, by the way, it's growing every week, we're getting more and more people that are, I guess, getting on the wait list. We have about 380,000 Native Hawaiians on the continent, including a similar number here in the islands that theoretically could qualify for a homestead lease. So obviously the 29,000 is not truly reflective of the numbers that we have to serve. So with that in mind, we really have to get innovative and not just do the single family residential. That's why we're going up. We're doing condo high rises. We're doing townhouses. We're doing multi-units. We're doing mixed use. We're working with OHA on a development in Kakako, Makai. So we're just moving it along and getting more, I guess, numbers. We're trying to address the numbers.
And some of your strategies include, for example, combining land parcels and using single developers to speed things up. Can
Right.
you walk us a little bit through that strategy?
Well, a good example is the Kaulokahai project we have in Kapolei. There are four parcels that we've combined that otherwise would have been maybe involved about 200, 150 units per parcel. But by combining them, we're able to make an award and enter into a developer agreement for 700, thereby not only I guess, benefiting from the economy of scales by doing large number of units, but also in expediting the development process, as well as combining the infrastructure with the vertical construction. It moves it along a lot quicker. And then also by awarding these project leases, we have the beneficiaries in place ready to move forward when their house is finished.
Well, the Halemo'iliili project is the first rental housing development from Hawaiian Homelands. What was behind the thinking to start a rental project?
Well, let me say the why we did it as a rental was in order to access the funding. By doing it as a rental, we were able to get federal funds. We worked with the Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corp. We were able to get rental housing revolving funds. We were also able to get 80 million private activity bonds, as well as getting gap funding from the private sector. And the federal was a real key piece in that we did a 221(d)(4), which is a loan program for renters. We're in the process of converting that because as a renter, you don't have any equity in the unit. By converting it to a rent with option to purchase, thereby creates equity interest. The profits basically that would otherwise go to the developer goes to the beneficiary, which is real key and important to me. And so that change is really not only do you have a tenant with a home ownership, uh, objective at the end of the 15-year LIHTC compliance period, but more importantly, they also have the ability to transfer as well as name a successor to their interest in this facility.
That's a huge advance from the past because you've got renters now being able to develop something akin to equity that they can take with them, and they're able to pass that on and create intergenerational wealth with their own heirs. Do you think that capital is perhaps the most critical need at this time? In fact, recently with Act 279 that you've referred to, Hawaiian Homelands received a $600 million infusion of capital. But how valuable is that? And is that sufficient? And where are we going in terms of the need to acquire capital?
Well, the 600 million that was awarded in 2022 under Act 279 is a step in the right direction. Obviously, you can do a lot with 600 million, which we've done. We basically are developing about 28 projects statewide. 511 million of that 600 million is dedicated to infrastructure. We also use about 52.8 million to acquire new lands, better lands, less costly to develop in really desirable locations. And in the balance of a 36 million, we're using it to help the beneficiaries get ready for home ownership, as well as creating some loans for them. But we clearly need a lot more money. And so that's why we're going to the legislature for additional funding, as well as exploring other options independent of our state legislature.
One of the big differences between DHHL of the past and in the present is that you're starting to use part of the land corpus to generate revenue, such as the Kamakani shopping center. What kinds of programs and revenue generating opportunities are you looking at just from the land?
Yeah, we've also identified maybe 10 different sites. As soon as I got the job, I said, you know what, guys, we got to generate revenue. We can't just rely on the legislature. So we identified 10 sites, which we felt are very viable for development and more importantly, revenue production. A couple of them, for example, in Kalaeloa, we have a 140-acre site. We turn it into a raceway park. It should cost about 200 million across the drainage canal in Cambo Industrial. There's a 43-acre site that we just issued and entered into a development agreement to do industrial park that will again not only make our lands a lot more obviously occupied, but more importantly generating for our projects or program. And we're looking at hotels, we're looking at a variety of things. Geothermal is for me something that is obviously not only provides certainty regarding energy as well as opportunities to generate revenue, but more importantly, besides just generating revenue, we can also reduce the electricity costs for our beneficiaries, which is one of, if not the highest in the world, excuse me, in the nation. Of our 11,000 homesteads, they have to endure approximately $30 million a year in electricity costs. We got to get that down. As we all know, electricity, one of the biggest besides your mortgage, or if not the biggest, has to be addressed, especially long term. I think geothermal, if done right, with approval of our beneficiaries, and including in areas that are more appropriate, away from archaeological sites, away from residential communities, in a an area that is there's a buffer zone is done with the new technology that doesn't deplete your water sources, but more importantly, is done in a way that services our beneficiaries in a more appropriate way.
Well, you certainly have some challenging opportunities. For example, with geothermal and other such um, steps into the future, perhaps you've got to work with counties and developers and community stakeholders and the Native Hawaiian population and your own beneficiaries. Um, are there any strategies you've learned for bringing together successful partnerships?
Yeah, well, one of the partnerships I'm looking at and hopefully developing in a positive way is working with OHA. Your board recently approved moving forward on the development of Block I in Kakako. And I think that's, it's about a 3.3-acre site. I think it could accommodate, you know, at least maybe 400 new homesteads as in a high-rise situation similar to our Bolodrome, which is going to accommodate 278 and take them off our wait list, is a similar approach that we got in a partnership. I'm very excited about moving forward. Our commission is supportive. They also voted approval of the commencement of the negotiations. But partnerships, that's real key, I think, to the development of not only our what do you call it, residential and homesteading program, but even in the revenue production side. We're looking at working with Parker Ranch as well as Kamehameha Schools regarding development of the cattle as well as the timber industry on the Big Island. We're working with Loon Farms regarding the development of citrus farms on Kauai, as well as developing, some of the a new initiative is aquaculture. Along the western side of Kauai, there's opportunities for development, as well as on Molokai, as well as some of the other islands. That's a cultural activity that addresses uh, the need for food resilience and support. So I think that's kind of the partnerships that we look forward to working with.
In addition to partnerships, there are also stakeholders who may not be in favor of a certain direction of DHHL at any given time. What have you learned in terms of dealing with these various groups in the community?
Well, I think you got to get out there and listen to them. We don't know everything. We're a government entity. I'm going to be there only so long. Long term, you get the beneficiaries that are permanent residents that have a vested interest in the improvement of their community that not only entails providing ancillary service, we can provide housing, but if we don't have the school, we don't have the resource center for them to meet and move things along and appreciate the cultural heritage and the learning process. We don't have the medical clinics. See, that's one of the things we did in Nanakuli. We did the Nanakuli Village Center, which has all of that. We have a rental housing facility, 48 units, that was used to lessen the overcrowdedness in the homestead community. We have a renal clinic that helps address those kind of issues. We also have Wanai a medical clinic there. We have Commitment Schools that did a Kalani Ho'okaha Cultural Learning Center that addresses the learning side of the community and their needs. We also have all the commercial enterprise that they can participate in, as well as provide the restaurants and services, the drive-throughs, you name it, it's there. And that makes a more holistic community rather than just vertical construction, isolation, and limited services. That's not what we want for our communities.
There's been a lot of talk about eligibility to keep families in the Hawaiian Homelands program, particularly regarding something you mentioned earlier, succession from um, parents to children and so forth in terms of ownership. Blood quantum and succession rules are often discussed. Can you explain how these work today and what changes you think are in the offing and how that may help beneficiaries?
Yeah, one of the things that we found is obviously the blood quantum has gone down regarding our beneficiaries, especially with respect to the children and grandchildren. And so we immediately, I guess in the mid 80s, we changed the law where you could convey a successor that's only 25%. You know, that included the spouse as well as the children, grandchildren, and brothers and sisters. And with that change, it allows a person that has a lease to convey or name as a successor people that have only 25% Hawaiian. So in the approach that we're currently using, we now issue a project lease, and with that lease, it eliminates the danger of them losing that legacy opportunity and generational stability and having a home by allowing that transfer or naming of a successor that's only 25%. We do that up front rather than waiting to at the end of the construction period, which may take years. And by doing that, we not eliminate, but we also more so provide opportunity for those that receive these project leases. So the intent there is to address the reduction in blood quantum that is, I wouldn't call it plaguing our program, but it's a reality. And so that's something we have to do immediately. That's what we're doing.
How is that Lease-in-hand program being received?
It's, everybody's excited. They love it. A lot of it's a way that some of the people that are on the wait list that have been on there maybe 40 years are able to bring some of their kids home. By giving them a lease, they can immediately uh, encourage the son or daughter to come home and, what with that project lease, even if they're 25%, that's a big difference. If their kid is 50%, then that's not a problem if they were to die on the wait list. But it is definitely a problem if they're on the wait list and they pass away and their heirs are only 25%. That's eliminated, but more importantly, it's resulted in a lot of them coming back. And then with the immediate conveyance, once they get the project lease, we then vet and coordinate with the new heir or the transferee that's maybe only 25%. And we figure out how to accommodate their needs regarding a new homestead to bring them home, which has happened in some of our newer projects. People have come home.
As you know, a good number of Native Hawaiians have moved away from Hawaii and are living on the mainland. And many of them are concerned about the rules for qualification for Hawaiian homelands. Is DHHL thinking about this or addressing some way to increase the inclusion of our Kanaka who are across the country?
Well, like I said, we do have that change in the law. This session, we're going in to increase the, I guess, group that qualify for under the 25% to nieces and nephews. For some of the homesteaders, if they the widow or widowers take priority. That's not what some of our homesteads. They want to give it to the blood ohana, and so that's one of the expansion of the opportunities regarding the 25% in the transfer or naming them as successor. So that's one way. There is a in Congress right now where they're considering allowing successors that are only 1/32nd Native Hawaiian. That's pending. That's already been approved by the legislatures at the state level. So that's another way that's being addressed. The likelihood of that passing is not, that I'm not that optimistic, but you got to continue. But I think the more important is regarding the current situation. We're getting houses out. We're getting and addressing the 25%, making sure they're not left holding the bag and or without anything.
That's very interesting. One of the things as we look forward is the directions and opportunities available to young Native Hawaiians who are considering applying or who are on the wait list now. What kind of hope can you speak to them?
We've also, we're encouraging community schools as well as trying to work with the university educational programs. Education is real key. So the logistics wise, getting these educational institutions into our community is very, very important. So we have a abundance of preschools by Kamehameha. We also have, and we're in the discussions regarding relocating, not relocating, but actually building a new large campus in Kapolei by Kamehameha. If that comes to fruition, that's going to be huge because of the bulk, if not well, actually the largest concentration of Native Hawaiians is in Kapolei. We have 4 communities totaling close to 2,000 beneficiaries, and we have significant expansion and award of additional homestead leases in that area.
Is that large population of Hawaiians in Kapolei something historic, or has that been the result of the growth of the area in the past couple decades?
Well, that is actually an area that we had no lands. So during the Wahe administration, it started it off. We were awarded some lands under the HHFTC program, the master planned multi-village communities, which we've expanded to other areas such as in Leali and Lahaina and Maui, as well as Laiopua or Kealakehe on the Big Island. But these new lands, including the 556 acres we recently acquired, expending close to 53 million in new areas. One of the things about homesteading is when you look at the history, the lands we were originally given over 200,000 are in very marginal, isolated areas, difficult to develop. So we've had to deal with that. And so with the acquisition of these new lands, we can better use the monies we have to provide opportunities for our beneficiaries that are more attractive and less costly from our side to develop.
You could remake history or make future history different from the past. And you had the resources and the authority to redesign the Hawaiian Homelands program, maybe in a more faithful way to Prince Kahio's thinking. What would you do differently? How would you structure it differently?
I don't know about way back in 1920, but I'll tell you right now what we are doing to restructure and repivot is we're going after a lot of government and state lands that are in excellent location. If you look at the history, a lot of the plantation lands as well as the ranch lands were excluded, specifically excluded from the homesteading program in order to preserve their leasing of these government lands. I'm talking about the big plantation, including the ranchers. So what we've done is we've identified lands throughout the state, and we've actually transferred close to over 16,000 of these lands to the department under its program. We're starting to develop those, but we haven't stopped. We're actually under a 5-year program with the support of the governor in transferring more of these more desirable lands to the program. And I think if we can flip or huli our land inventory and have all these great lands that are not only not just from a homesteading, but from a revenue producing standpoint, can be used. I believe the next century or the next 100 years under the program is going to be a very, not only exciting time, but very active, very productive. We can develop a hell of a lot more great homesteading communities. We're looking at the fish ponds. We want to get that in our inventory. We're looking at some of the Hawaiian communities, such as on the Big Island, Miloli'i. We're looking at Kahana Valley, and we're looking at areas that there's a high concentration of Native Hawaiians, and ask the community. I'm not saying we're going in and saying, "Oh, we're going to do this." We're going to ask the community if they would like to convert into a Native Hawaiian homesteading program where they get now a homestead lease that's for 99 years with a 100-year extension versus a 65-year deal on our lease, which now allows them not only to create a legacy, but access some of the funding tools that we have for our homesteaders. But more importantly, it provides stability for the community as a collective group. So I'm excited about that. We're really pushing that. We brought on Riley Koananakoa, heir of Prince Kuhio, to lead that charge. So it's kind of interesting that our key player or quarterback comes from the Kuhio family.
It's interesting. Well, Kali, certainly today, the governor, the legislators, council members, and the public at large are fully aware of the need for more housing in Hawaii for everyone. And that has become a major issue for politicians. What role does the Hawaiian Homelands play in being able to solve and resource that problem that we all have here in the state of Hawaii?
I think the best thing we can do for the community as a whole is we put our beneficiaries that are on the wait list that are renting outside and occupying these other homes and free those homes up by putting and converting them into the homesteading program. That frees it up to provide more housing, affordable housing for the general public. So I think if we collaborate and we coordinate, I think is an opportunity that benefits the entire community. But more so, put them in a community that, with respect to our homesteaders, if they're better off, they right now make up a majority of the socioeconomic and cultural problems. They don't have to, if the state doesn't have to, carry the burden of all these costs because these beneficiaries are put into a better and more stable situation, that also frees up money that they can, then focus in on providing additional affordable housing for the public at large.
Well, Kali, thank you very much for your informative responses. And more than that, thank you for serving in leadership for the advancement of Hawaiian homelands and the betterment of the Hawaiian people. And you're playing a very important role in the future of Hawaii and Hawaiian people. Just appreciate you very much. Any last word you'd like to say to our audience?
Yeah, let's do Pupukai Holomua. Let's work together to progress. And same to you, Mr. Keli'i. Akina, you're a very key, I think, player at OHA, and I look forward to our partnership and working together to move and raise up the Lahui.
Thank you very much, and certainly a hana kako. Let's work together. Before leaving, I do want to make this disclosure that although I am a trustee at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, none of the things said on this program necessarily reflect the position of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. ThinkTech Hawaii is the sponsor of today's program. It is independent, and any views or opinions expressed are actually just that, my opinions or colleagues. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. We certainly have much to work together on in Hawaii, and so I hope that you will continue to watch ThinkTech Hawaii, and we'll see you on our program next episode in 2 weeks. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.